Suffolk Pod Show is produced and managed by podtalk.co.uk. I'm Mark Mason.
And I'm Susanna Hornby.
Episode 25. Susanna talks to Nick Wakley, former Welsh International and now the head coach at the Bury St Edmunds Rugby Club.
Welcome back to the Suffolk Pod Show and a very warm welcome to Nick. Hello, Nick.
Hi, how you doing?
Yep, we're fine, thank you, over here in Suffolk. How are you doing?
Oh, yeah, it's some crazy times, unprecedented times, but no, it's just sitting here with my fingers crossed, hoping that rugby's going to come back soon. But, you know, obviously we got the Six Nations to keep us entertained. And, yeah, as I say, it's just biding time, really.
Yeah, it's funny, and they were showing the images of Cardiff on Sunday, completely empty.
I know. You know, those scenes. You know, the Six Nations games are the main street there, Queen Street and Castle Street. They're absolutely jam packed, thousands and thousands of people, and to see the bus come through empty and in empty streets was very weird. But no, as I say, it's difficult, trying times, and fair play to all the nations to getting this tournament on. I should imagine logistically it's a nightmare, but fair play. They got it on, and there was heaps of entertainment.
And they certainly have, and we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about Wales later, don't you worry.
Excellent.
How did you start in the rugby world?
Oh, to be fair, rugby came to me quite late. I was actually more, my father was a footballer, and I was way more into football, and I had a bit of rejection, sort of. I think it was around about under 15s. I didn't make the Wales under 15s football side, so I can remember rocking into school and sort of seeing rugby trials, and it was almost like, two fingers to football, so I give rugby a go, and it sort of picked it up, and I was in Basleg Comprehensive School, so it was a very rugby orientated school. Likes of Stuart Barnes have been there, and I went through school with Ryan Jones, who was captain for Wales for a number of caps, and me and him both really started rugby at the same time. So it was it was a great time to get involved. The school had a great program, and it was a good bit of fun with the boys, if you like. So I then started playing both sports, and really found myself excelling in rugby, and as I say, it sort of went from there. Really, I can remember probably the standout trigger point, if you like, for my rugby career to take off was a Cardiff Youth versus Newport Youth game, and I believe I got sent off in that game. So I was horrendous. I think there was tears in the changing room and all sorts. And I can remember my parents coming in and introducing me to this gentleman, and Peter Thomas had a son playing in that, and he was the owner of Cardiff, and he offered. He came in and asked if I'd be interested going to Clifton College on a rugby scholarship. So, and that was it really. It sort of took off from there, and off I went to Clifton and experienced some fantastic facilities, great school, great coaching, and sort of went from there really.
Extraordinary. And I mean, you played with the first 15, but you're a sevens man as well.
Yeah, I was very much into sevens. Come the Cardiff Youth days, then I was coached by Mike Raya, Howard Stone, and Colin Hillman, who was a big mentor of mine. He was the Wales sevens coach at the time. Wales probably looked at sevens a little bit differently than other nations. It was a development tool. Then we had a team full of very young players. I think the oldest player would be 21, 22. There wasn't any sort of seasoned Serevis at the time for Wales. So we were very much a, go out there, playing these tournaments, experience, top level rugby, big crowds. And I had an opportunity then to play for Wales Sevens, and and yeah, took it with two hands and played for a number of years on and off.
Yeah.
There was a bit of break in between. I think David Moffat came into the union and shredded the budget, and Wales were in wilderness in terms of the sevens for a while, and it came back, and we qualified for a World Cup and actually ended up winning that World Cup. So the boys did fantastically well in terms of that. But it was a great time, as a 20-year-old. Well, I think I was 19, 20 when I first went, and just to experience. I played against the likes of people like Serevi and Joe Rocococo and Carl Tanana, and some of these players that were absolutely breathtaking, and it was a great sort of school for me. I learned a lot about tough environments and surviving in those tough environments, and while experiencing wonderful life experiences, and at that time there was World Series events in Malaysia, Singapore, all over the shop, Hong Kong and Dubai, and so I felt very lucky and very privileged to experience that, but it really sort of gave me a big passion regarding sevens, and I obviously kept that going through the year with my connections with Samurai Sevens, and we played a lot of invitational tournaments around the world, and probably that led me into coaching. So there's a lot of arguments, in the world of rugby. People think that sevens is a very different game to the 15s, and how can players cross over? But I'm not one of those. I'm a huge champion of sevens in terms of what it can offer players and how it can develop them, and how it can work parallel alongside a 15s program. So there's plenty of examples of players that have stepped up to the 15s arena when I was playing the likes of we had an 18-year-old Mike Phillips, involved, Big John Thomas there at Worcester, and a lot of boys were sort of experiencing that sevens program for a year, 2 years, and all of a sudden stepping onto the big stage and in 15s, which was a great, tick in the sevens box. And, as a development tool, we had a conveyor belt of players coming through, and, that's probably slowed down a little bit in the last few years, but, there's still a lot of talented players in Wales and England that have gone through the sevens program, and I can reel off heaps of them. Rory McConaughey, that's come through that program. Thomas Williams, for Wales, the scrum half. They've all experienced and started their journeys, if you like, in that sevens arena.
Yeah, wasn't Jason Robinson a sevens player?
Oh God, I would not have liked to have played against him. No,
okay.
I'm not sure. I don't think I ever experienced playing against Jason. I was quite lucky. I experienced playing with him in Sale for that year, and that was fantastic. He was he was. I hope he doesn't take offence, but he was a freak. He was unbelievable. He could sidestep you in a phone box, but ultimately talented professional. Yeah.
You must have met some great guys when you played for Sale. It's a really lucky time for me, because obviously I had a connection with Kingsley Jones there at Doncaster, and I sort of performed well the couple of years previous, and in terms of the national leagues there, and Kingsley was a big fan of mine, so it took me gave me the opportunity really at Sale to work with him and Philippe. And as I say, you look back at that time and think, I was really proud of my playing performances. Yeah. To be honest, I didn't get as many as I would have liked, but to experience the environment, to train with these guys, to get to know them was just a brilliant point in my life, really. Yeah. And obviously to break into a team that performed so well that year, and we won the Guinness Premiership that year, and I say I probably had about 5 appearances, 5 starts from that year. But as I say, I look back at it with huge fondness, and obviously the experiences I gained working with those incredible players was something I'll never forget. Going back to playing with the sevens, or in the sevens, I should say, what was it like, that first cap? Oh, I can tell you all about it. I still have nightmares about it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the first tournament, I remember, because Colin Hillman was our coach, and he was very close with Gordon Titchens, the Kiwi coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember I think it was on a Wednesday before the tournament, and they'd arranged for us to play a training game against each other. You're there I think it was about 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon. It must have been, mid-30s. It was unbelievably hot. And obviously, we've got a very young side. And I remember playing these Kiwis and just thinking, oh my God, we couldn't lay a finger on him. There was Eric Rush, and he was pulling the strings. They had a player called Araini Aid, who was just a little magician. And you just, honestly, you thought, well, they've absolutely tuned us up for 4 7-minute periods. And then I remember sort of sitting on the side of the pitch. The boys have got ice towels over their head. A couple of them are being sick. And all of a sudden you look over in New Zealand, Gordon Titchens have got them doing 100-metre turnarounds after the game. And then already you're thinking, wow, they've broken us. They've broken us on Wednesday. We haven't even started playing. But no, my parents were out there. It was my uncle was out there as well. He was a big rugby fan, and it was great to have them all out there to see my first cap for Wales. No, it was something I'd never forget. And as I say, it was a huge, very steep learning curve, but one that stood me in good stead for the rest of my life, really.
Yeah, you wore that Welsh jersey with pride.
No, definitely. I think there were times when we'd be playing in bowls and plates and trying to qualify for quarterfinals and semi-finals, and we knew what success was for us. Success was gauged very differently for us. It wasn't all about winning cups, and it was about actually the conveyor belt of players that we were blooding. And, probably, was it communicated with us that was how we gauged success? No, it probably wasn't. But, we loved it. We came together. We worked, incredibly hard. I can remember one of Colin's sort of mantras were, at training, we weren't going to bring the ball in until we were absolutely hanging. So, our training sessions would be unbelievably difficult, and your lungs are burning, and then all of a sudden he's bringing in the ball work and the decision making to stress and strain that sort of skill set. And as I say, some players rose to it, some players didn't, but what an environment to do it in.
Incredible. Was that partly the decision why you moved into coaching, or was that a whole different thing for you? I'd probably after Sale and after I went out to New Zealand to play and experience some rugby out there and loved it out there. But I prolapsed a disc in my spine in my L5, which sort of made me think, what have I got after rugby? And then I had a couple of trying conversations with my father and sort of sitting down there and saying, well, actually, I dropped out of uni. I started off at uni at the start, and then I was signed on with Cardiff Rugby Club, probably as an 18-year-old, and then sort of said, well, actually, I wanted to give rugby a crack and not do the uni thing yet. And it sort of triggered something in me to say, well, I could probably step back from professional rugby and start to think about life after rugby. And as soon as I did that, really, I went to semi-professional rugby and spent some more time at Ebervale as a player, Pontypool and Newport and some clubs around Wales. But then I did my accountancy degree. So my dad's got a small accountancy firm. So I started doing that as part-time, and took me about 5-6 years to complete that and sort of kept the rugby going. And I was just given the opportunity to do some player coaching with Samurai in terms of the sevens, and that really got my juices going for coaching. Really, I suppose it's I love that side of the game. I am a bit of a scholar of the game. Every day's a learning day for me, and it sort of stood me in good stead and gave me that introduction into coaching. I soon found player coaching in sevens is ridiculously difficult. As a 29, 30-year-old bloke who's telling people to do something on the sevens field that I can't do myself is not a good thing. So, I started to pull back on
that, and then just started to coach the sevens, and all of a sudden I just wanted to learn my trade. So I started to coach my local team, Canton in Cardiff, which was a Division 5 team. Loved it. Loved going back to my roots, if you like, and helping those guys out. I started to play a bit with them, but it was more down to learning my craft, taking my badges, taking my coaching qualifications, and then sort of starting at the bottom ladder. I could speak to you for hours about my issues I've got with players coming straight out of the professional game and being handed coaching jobs and at a whim, and not actually learning their craft. And even to a certain extent, it happens in football, and you've only got to see the likes of people like Frank Lampard and absolute legends of the game. Yeah. But then get given a real big post very early on in their career. And then all of a sudden, when times are hard, they haven't got the experience to pull back on, when they need it. Obviously, starting at the bottom rung, and I'm not saying everyone should start at the bottom rung. I'm just saying from that Division 5, I was cleaning the changing rooms. I was going around boys' houses on Saturday morning to make sure they were awake, because half of them had a few beers on the Friday night. So it's everything I sort of learned from that has come up the leagues with me, and times when you're not winning and you're trying to figure out what's gone wrong. And I'm very self-reflective, so the first thing I look at is when we lose is, right, what can I have done better? How could I have changed things? And then obviously, I start that process and sort of think back to what I could have changed or doing something differently. But that life experience, as when times get hard, it's important that the coaches have got that to fall back on. And unfortunately, nowadays is everyone wants success yesterday. It's a tough environment to be in.
When a result goes the wrong way for your team, do you blame yourself? I mean, this is where the experience comes in, doesn't it? Because you know what went wrong and you can work it back with the team in a different way, potentially.
Yeah, I suppose that's highlighted, this weekend with Eddie Jones, with Eddie Jones. He was very much down the line of taking one for the team there and saying it was his fault and he didn't prepare the boys well enough. And I suppose there's a bit of that, I think to be a good coach, you have to be self-reflective and you have to look at yourself first and see what you could have done differently before you start pointing the finger, finishing a game and sort of saying, well, that's your fault, and that's your fault. Well, actually think of, the structure of the week. What did we focus on in training? What was our game plan? Could my game plan have been any different? And all of a sudden, coaching at the end of the day is all about relationships. Obviously there's a lot of tactical and technical knowledge you need, but if you can't deliver it and you can't make people do what you want them to do and you can't drive them to that, it all comes down to relationships. It's a very much relationship-based profession, if you like, and coaches that shy away from that and sort of want to be pulled back from that, are the ones that really don't get the best out of those players. And look, I think the English players will have a hell of a lot of respect for Eddie for taking that and diverting a bit of bad media for the players. Yeah. The players will be hurting. And I suppose top players and top coaches do look internally straight away anyway. So the players will do it naturally and think, had a crap game there. And, they'll look internally first and then sort of say, well, what could we have done? And I suppose it's part of the job I absolutely love, part of coaching that, I like to think that I do a pretty good job in.
Yeah. I mean, also, just to say for Scotland, they played remarkably well.
Oh, outstanding. Yeah. Absolutely outstanding. I think once they met him physically, and they were all absolutely fired up for that game, and the collisions were being won, and their kicking game was more effective in terms of them finding green grass and finding the territory when they needed to, and England sort of faltering on that. But you can't take it away from them. They looked like a very cohesive team and a team that were desperate for the win. And fair play to them. They were outstanding.
It was an extraordinary match to watch. So going back, Nick, sorry, we were talking about your career and coming through the Wales divisions. Eventually you ended up playing for Edmunds.
Yeah, definitely. you head up the valleys. You wait until your thermometer goes down to about 0, and then you're in Ebbw Vale. That's pretty much how I got there. I think I absolutely love this club. It's a club very close to my heart. I've played there a couple of times and coached there, obviously, for a 2-year period, which we were very blessed with a good bit of success there in the Welsh Premiership. I absolutely loved it. It was that really sort of nailed down my career sort of goals, if you like. I knew I wanted to excel in coaching from my time at Ebbw Vale. It was brilliant. I was very lucky. I was very lucky, and this is the thing about coaching. I got to work with some absolutely fantastic coaches. Jason Strange, Kerry Jones from Harlequins, who was at the Dragons. He was an excellent forwards coach, and that was our first year. And then sort of the second year, I got to work with Nigel Davis as well. Wow. And he's got international experience as a coach. So from there, it's I suppose it's coaching is that sort of melting pot of ideas, and you pick and choose people you've worked with and listened to and have been mentored by, and I'm supremely grateful to Ebbw Vale for obviously hiring me there throughout that passage, because I got to work with such great people, and the players were just, a brilliant set of lads, and they were all rowing the boat in the same direction. A lot of them were local lads, really, with we were punching well above our weight in terms of coming up against sides like your Pontypridd and your Merthers, who had very big budgets, and we were there as a local side with a lot of community based rugby players, and it was just a brilliant time to be there.
Yeah. And you did rather well.
Yeah, we did well. Yeah, first year, and obviously got in to the final there, to the Premiership final, which obviously no one thought we'd do. I'll give you a bit of history, but before it, so Ebbw Vale were ring fenced out of the Welsh Premiership for 3 previous years, so they weren't allowed to get promoted. So they actually won the championship 3 years on the spin, and couldn't get promoted. So what it actually did for them is, one, they developed a massive winning habit and a great culture and everything the boys wanted to invest in. Yeah. And it, obviously when they came to the Premiership in that first year, there was just a hunger to show that these boys deserved to be there, and they showed it week in, week out. And obviously we came short against Pontypridd, and that sort of that hurt the boys, because they genuinely thought that we could have taken them, and obviously, the following year, and there was a change in from Jason to Jason had his opportunity in regional rugby with the Blues, and Nigel came in for us at, I have to credit the owner there, John Jones, the chairman, is a fantastic bloke and so supportive of Ebbw, and he got in Nigel, and obviously we went that one step further, and still, people thinking that it was a flash in the pan, and to do it the second year and to really convincingly beat Ponty in the final again was a great day out, to be fair.
I bet.
One I won't forget. Yeah. I think I did forget it, the amount of beers I had afterwards. But yeah, no, it was a brilliant day. Brilliant day.
And from there, of course, you went on to coach the women's Welsh team.
Yeah, as I say, there's a bit of right place at the right time sort of element of coaching, and obviously I'd had a good bit of success with Ebbw Vale, and that was great. And obviously, it being a semi-professional environment, it was a Tuesday and a Thursday sort of training session and a Saturday game, and there was a lot of analysis that we did sort of on our own time. But I was working as an accountant there, and this opportunity came to work in the WRU. I wasn't, if I'm brutally honest, I wasn't I got offered the job a couple of times. I was a little bit unsure about working with women, and I didn't have any experience in it.
Yeah.
But speaking to Geraint John there at the WRU, and sort of him reassuring me that when I could do it, and obviously it's a good pathway for a coach to do, because I had to sort of change. I had to adapt.
Yeah.
The working with women is clearly very different to working with men. So, my delivery had to change. Things I suppose the best way of comparing, when people ask me what it was like to coach women and men, is say, for example, I could be doing an attacking structure in Ebervale, and I could say, right, boys, you go in here, then we're doing this, then we're doing that. They're your 3 phases, do it. And I would say that to, the Welsh women, and it'd be like, why? Why are we doing that? So it was almost like, women need to know why they are doing it. And obviously a delivery, and delivering what you want to do in a way that is sort of respectful, but you understand why they're doing it. I had to go into that environment, and I was absolutely blown away with a lot of the athletes I worked with. These women have full-time jobs, students, and sort of what they give up and what they sacrifice to actually play for their country, and with at the time was little or no support, was incredible. And I still have the world of respect for them, in terms of comparing to what England have, and Australia and New Zealand, and what they do to play for their country will always impress me, and I will be sort of forever grateful for that time, because that professional environment, even though it was very amateur, I was in a professional environment because I was full time. I could, I was honing my coaching skills. I was, I was blessed to be in the Vale and surrounded by great coaches and referees and analysts and people I could bounce ideas off. And it was a fantastic place to work. For 2 years, I'd learned so much and have so much appreciation for those 2 years, but unbelievably trying times in terms of trying to get that women's game to where we wanted it to be,
Yeah. You've got considerable views on women's rugby today. What, you don't coach women anymore?
No. So, obviously, look, it was a point where I felt I'd seen that the blueprint for a women's game succeed, and I did a lot of research in terms of how England have done it. I knew a lot of their coaches, New Zealand and Australia, and a friend of mine who I played with a few times, Tim Walsh, was the Aussie women's sevens coach for a number of years before he transferred over to the men's side of the sevens, and what really stuck out for me is we were trying to do it backwards. We were trying to focus on 15s and 7s. And really, honestly, our player pool wasn't big enough for it. And it was almost like we were trying to support a 15s program with a World Cup around the corner in 2017. But we were also, I was sort of trying to hammer home that all these successful nations built a sevens profile first and a sevens program to support these women. Now it makes sense from a monetary point of view, because one, the women's game aren't blessed with huge amounts of money. So it made sense to professionalize a smaller group of players, and then let that drip feed into the 15s. Those players all of a sudden get a bit older, think, oh, well, we can't, keep up with these younger girls. Well, I'll go to 15s, or they'll just sort of say and have, contract options with 15s. And then, what happens is you develop that culture, you develop the professionalism, the understanding of nutrition, everything, how to live a professional life with a smaller amount of girls. And all of a sudden, it drip feeds into the bigger program. Now, we were trying to run before we could walk, I believed. And look, it got to the point where, I still remember this, preparing for, we'd had a fantastic year in 2017. We'd finished 5th in the World Cup.
and automatically qualified for the next World Cup, which was great and the pressure off. But then we'd had our highest place ever finish in Rugby Europe in a sevens tournament, which was great for Wales. But because we did that, we qualified for the Commonwealth Games and we qualified for a World Series qualifier. So if we won that tournament, we'd be on the World Series. So it was a big time, and sort of, if I can just sort of explain the fact that 2 weeks before we were going away to a World Series qualifier and the Commonwealth Games the week after, 6 or 7 of my players were playing in a game against France in the Six Nations. So you're sort of saying, well, really, come on, what's the point of that? Because we didn't have the player pool, and we had to compete on the Six Nations. We couldn't just take them all out, but our focus was wrong. We were sort of saying, well, this can't happen. I can't have 6 or 7 of my first team players not playing on the World Series or the Commonwealth Games or under pressure. So it was something that I had to sort of focus on and say, I think we've just got it wrong a little bit. We needed to professionalise that sevens game and then sort of go from there. We should have been solely focused on the fact that we could have, if we'd have got onto that World Series qualifier, then all of a sudden, doors are opened for us to support these, a smaller group of players to be really professional, to, live on the World Series, to play against the best players in the world, to play in front of, 20, 30,000, people and supporters. And all of a sudden, what it would have gained from our program in the long term, our long-term goals, could have been achieved better. But as I say, it's something that do you know what? I worked under Roland Phillips there, who was the head of women's rugby there in the WIU at the time, and I loved it. Me and Ro challenged each other, and there was a fair few on-running battles with 7s and 15s, and he was coming very much from a 15s, point of view, and I respected that opinion. I just felt like there needed to be a clear pathway for these girls, and at the minute we were saturating it a bit with 15s and 7s, and it wasn't enough quality for and we've got some unbelievably exciting players in Wales, and that was the frustrating thing for me, was I think we just missed the trick on that pathway and sort of focusing in on that, because as I say, we couldn't compete with full 15s contracts and professionalising 15s players because, obviously, like England, we didn't have that.
Did you actually make it to the Commonwealth Games?
So, it was brilliant life experience. So we went out to Hong Kong first for the World Series qualifier, and we came up short there in the semi-final against South Africa. So, it was, that was painful because we actually, in the Commonwealth Games the week after, we ended up turning them over. So it's, it was one of those, what if moments and but it showed the women that actually they weren't far away. So we were very competitive in the World Series qualifier, and the week after then we flew directly to Brisbane, and it was just a mind-blowing week. One of the best life experiences of my life, being involved in the Commonwealth Games and sort of being there in the village and just sort of experiencing everything, and that we actually played the first game of the Commonwealth Games there against Australia. And we competed in the game for 8-9 minutes, and they scored a few tries at the end. But we got a chance to score against them as well, and it lifted the girls, and it was it was incredible. I can't say enough of how awesome Australia were in putting that sort of show on, and it was something I'll never forget.
Who won, out of interest?
Great question. That is a great question.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I want to say, I think Australia did it.
Well, then that's...
but I could be wrong.
Do you know what I mean? When you go out of the tournament, I think, oh, sorry, I'm not going to watch it anymore. No,
I don't like you anymore. I'm going.
Yeah, no, it was, as I say, it was all a bit of a blur, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because obviously the players, we'd taken them to tournaments, and we'd taken them to Dubai, and we'd taken them to tournaments around the world, and obviously the union were very supportive in us trying to replicate that intensity around the world of what we could expect in the Commonwealth Games, and but it was just for them to have never experienced it, to have a tournament like the World Series qualifier and then to bounce to another tournament the week after was something else for them. Obviously there were some tired bodies and there was some aching bodies, but I think that I think from 1 to 13, I think all the players absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, no, it was something that really, really put the bit between their teeth of wanting to succeed and wanting to get back, to that big stage again. And I think that the union now have hired a guy called Warren Abrahams, and he's a very good sevens coach, as well as a 15s coach. So hopefully they've got a long road to get back to where they want to be, but. As I say, there's some talented, players coming through, and there's been a good bit of talent identification there with some young girls coming through, and some exciting ones coming through that are all playing in the English Premiership at the minute. So, hopefully, with the right guidance and the right focus, that Wales women can get back to where they should be.
Yeah, I mean, as we promote it more, women's rugby, which it is. Far better promoted than it was even 3 or 4, 5 years ago. There must be more girls, women coming to the game.
Yeah, look, there are so many things that the game are doing now, and that we could have done years ago to try and keep promoting this, and having the games on pre or post, the men's games, or and almost trying to keep a bit of fan excitement there, because for me it has to be entertaining. It has to put bums on seats, and we're not there yet. But they're things that I've always thought about, and little things like, should the women play with a size 4 ball? Will that make the games more skillful? Will that make it? There's lots of sort of nuances that could be changed there in that women's game to make it more entertaining to watch. Even though I watch a lot of women's rugby anyway. With my partner plays for Gloucester Hartbury and Wales, so I get actually to watch a lot of rugby, but it's. Women's rugby, but it is an exciting brand, and I love what the English Premiership are doing. I do sit there a little bit jealous. I would love Wales to be involved in that. I know a lot of the players are playing for English teams, but to have like like a super regional team in there in the English Premiership, I think is something that the union need to look at and almost have our own team to develop, because at the end of the day, you're looking at these pretty much, I think 90% of our Welsh women are playing for English Premiership sides at the minute. Yeah. So you're sort of saying, if you're an English coach and you've got a young girl who you want to develop, and want to give game time to, but then you've got a seasoned Welsh pro in a seasoned Welsh women's player, in their position. Well, you're going to, give the opportunity to the young English girl, because you've got that, focus point to say, well, you'd love to see her get and play for England with a Welsh sort of super regional team, if you like. One or two of those teams, I definitely think we can put out and compete against, some of those teams with the right sport, with the right funding. But as I say, it's it's constant battles with the women's program, and look, I've got the world of respect for people in there and trying to push that, and there's the WRU are doing a lot for women's rugby in terms of
There's Lisa Burgess now on the board of the WRU, and she's doing fantastic work, and she's a part of Gloucester Hartbury, and there are people banging the drum for Welsh women's rugby, and I do hope and I do want to see in sort of our time the fact that our girls can compete. And I think fingers crossed it's not too far away.
Yeah. Let's talk about Bury St Edmunds Club now. We're so lucky to have you here, Nick. But Bury's club is really old. I mean, it's 100 years old. It's really well thought of. Is it UK wide, I presume?
Yeah, look, when I came out of the Welsh programme, obviously my connection is with Samurai, so I kept my coaching going with Invitational Sevens. And obviously the owner there of Samurai, Terry Sands, is a pro-am performance manager in Bury St Edmunds. So he is. It got to the point where I think it was halfway through the season and he wasn't happy with his current coaching regime, and sort of said, "Would I go and watch a game?" And look, obviously, being based in Wales, it was a difficult sort of option to take, but I think the first game I watched was they played away at Taunton and took a 50-point drubbing. So I was like, oh god, this is going to be a hard work. But as soon as I got in there, we had half a season to try and turn it around and get out of the relegation area, and we ended up, I think, finishing 7th. So we climbed the table in that first year, and there wasn't really any magic pills or any sort of. Bury St Edmunds had a good side and some talented players. They just needed a bit more clarity and needed a bit more focus on their defence, and harder to break down and become harder to break down, I should say. But I was very impressed with the whole setup. It actually reminded me a lot of Ebbw Vale when I got there. I know that sounds weird, but it was a very community-based club. Yeah. I came there and on a Sunday it's full of minis, and the minis are there, and that's run by a great bloke called Craig Germaini, and all of a sudden the juniors are there, and there's a girls team, a women's team, a vets team. We've got a third team, a fourth team. Everything as a club and as a community focal point. It's there, it's the rugby club. And that's what I love about Bury St Edmunds. And we're very self-sufficient. We've got a great clubhouse and great food that flies out of the club. And then you've got, we've got 4 pitches there. We've got mini and junior pitches. We've got an AstroTurf for when the weather gets bad. I've got a full kitted out elite gym that, the boys can train in. And really everything you need is there. So it was a job opportunity that when I got there and when I met the people involved, obviously I knew Terry from 20 odd years back, and it was great to sort of work with someone that I trusted the core, and it was just it was a decision that I knew would have to be made on whether I could manage the travel, as well as obviously my kids, and making sure that I wasn't just leaving them be. So I had to get to the point where and the club were absolutely so supportive of me. So I would drive up there on a Tuesday morning, get there, late morning, early afternoon, depending on how bad the M25 was. And then sort of took it from there. Home games, I'd be there from Tuesday to Saturday, and away games quite often they were in the southwest. So, if it was a game in, say, Bristol, all I'd do is I'd go up Tuesday, come back Thursday late at night on Thursday, and then go directly to the game. So, as I say, I couldn't have done what I've done for the last couple of years without the club supporting me. I've got some good coaches that we brought
brought in, and Ben Cooper is a big local lad, over 200 appearances in Championship rugby at tight head, and he's still doing a bit of player coaching. So he's on his sort of very early on pathway to taking his badges and doing the right things, and he's a great guy to work with, and we've got some other real strong coaches involved now, and we've got some good local players, and a nice taste of a bit of foreign talent as well. So as I say, it's a great club to be a part of. There's a great bit of history there. They've been through the mill as a club. Obviously, you'll know about the plane crash and that sort of decimated the club, but there's a big shrine to those lost in that disaster, and it's understanding a culture of a club before you go there, and what it's all about, and what are its driving forces is a big part of succeeding somewhere. You have to engross yourself in that as a coach, and I think that I have, and they're great people, and I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it is just a massive community hub in Bury. I mean, you have hundreds of volunteers as well.
Yeah, that's that is the brilliant thing about it is there's people that just come out of the woodwork to help and want to help, and obviously getting through this unbelievable time with the pandemic and how how operations have just stopped at the club, and obviously we need the support and we need the help from whether it's on the GoFundMe or the volunteers that have come in just to do something for nothing, and everyone, as I say, it's massive, whether it's on field or whether it's off field. Having people rowing the boat in the same direction is huge, and with people like Terry Sands, they're obviously pulling the strings there in the pro-am is ideal for me, because it takes that bit of pressure off me to do what I love doing, and that's being more hands-on.
And you have you mentioned them earlier, actually. You have a massive range of teams, from a first 15 right down to the fourths, and is it Foxes, the women's team?
Yeah, the Foxes, and what I've tried to do in terms of the club is be very visible. I was very aware that probably in the first 5-6 months and trying to navigate the club out of a bit of turmoil, that I probably took my eye off my duties as a director of rugby, as a head coach in the club, because I wasn't as visible as I should have been in the junior academies, in the minis, in the women's, and obviously that is massively important. So I think there was a period of time where the women didn't have a coach, so I came in and took some of the women's sessions there on the Wednesday night at the club, and we were looking to get coaches in from even some of the players to maybe take some of the some of our first team players, our pro-am players that come in and help out the women that have done that from time to time. But now they've got a very settled coach. He's a young guy on his sort of journey now, and they're very settled. They've been very used to a lot of success climbing up the leagues, and they've got a great bunch. They're very close. They're a very close-knit group, and I think they can go places, and it's great to see, because at the end of the day, as a community, it's a game for all, and that's a big one for me. Is rugby has always been a game for all, whether you're short, whether you're fat, whether you're tall, whether you're massive, boy or girl. It is massive to the sport and to the community in general that rugby is seen as that, and I love that about the game, and that's really what Bury St Edmunds epitomises. As I say, it's even the vets have got a side, and that's you don't just stop playing for Bury St Edmunds. It's like they're all sort of a part of it, and as I say, it's very endearing to find a club like that.
As the head coach, Nick, you're obviously always on the lookout for great talent coming into the club. What do you particularly look for in an up-and-coming player?
Yeah, great question. In the environment that we have, new players are sent to us by scouts or agents, and we amass that information. So obviously they send us footage of the player. So obviously talent and ability is probably at the forefront of our level. What I really like to do is I like to meet or talk with the player face to face and really understand their why. That's a hugely important question, and some it flummoxes players, but why are they doing it? What's their driving force? Because that information to me is very important of how I push their buttons when I need to get the best out of them. So in terms of a mental side, I need to know that player would be if they wanted to come to Bury, it's because they want to invest in the area, they want to get to know the players. What they doing it for? Is it just I'm looking for a championship contract and I see this as a stepping stone. But even if it's that, I need to know that honesty and have that sort of feedback back and forth with a player, because it's important for me to know that and drive them going forward and try to help them achieve that goal. I think that when you start scouting yourself and start going around and looking around for young players, and we signed a good few local talented players. Jeffrey brothers are front row boys, and they're only 18 at the minute. Came from Colchester. I've got a young winger, Sean Blythe, who came from Dis, which isn't far away. And these are projects and something we see in these players. And you probably look at them and think, athletically, what are their strong points, skill wise, what are their strong points, and obviously until you meet them and talk to them and really, pull no punches in the questions that I ask them. I think, if I get that honesty back and I get that feeling that they are being honest with me, then I can move forward with it,
Yeah. Like you said, it's about the relationship. It can't work without it.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's, if it comes to the point where, a lot of players think they know the answers and think they know what we want to hear as coaches. And I kind of try and wade through that and sort of try and get to the crux of their why. And as you say, it takes, to be upfront and to be honest. But as I say, it's probably a melting pot of everything. Obviously, talent and ability and technical and tactical understanding of, whether you see them play and you think, oh, they know what to do in certain areas of the field. Their decision making is good, right? Are they this sort of player? What type of player am I looking for? And the blend of what I've got already, and it's sort of a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. They have to have a good brain, a rugby brain.
Yeah, I've met plenty without it, but it's such an undervalued thing. Whether they, I try and make our players scholars of the game. So analysis is a big part of my coaching. I like them to have a analysis session on the Tuesday before the session, and then on a preview session of what they're coming up against on the weekend, and that's important because if they're not scholars of the game and they're not watching rugby and not watching rugby like a fan would, and I keep trying to say this, watch positionally, watch a player in your position, watch what they do after the ball's gone, watch what, tactically and sort of say, well, what are they doing in defence here? What are they doing differently? How are they so aggressive? What, and it's almost like to say, well, I challenge them and show them clips from games, from the English Premiership or Six Nations, and I'll film it on my phone, or we'll put it on Huddle and get the boys to watch, and I'll challenge them and sort of say, well, what set pieces did we like from the Six Nations? Has anyone got any clips? And because, if they don't have that want to become a scholar and want to learn, then, they're teetering on that edge of becoming know-it-alls, I know we got to do this, and I know we got to do this. And it has to be part of my job to actually develop their off-field sort of thinking and the way they think and the way they approach, oppositions and games we've just played. It's a huge part of rounding them off as a rugby player.
Let's talk about children coming into rugby. What I just specifically want to ask, what age do you think children can safely start playing rugby?
Oh, look, I think that minis and the minis age group and 5 and 6 and running around playing tag and the tag games are absolute gold for them. For me, rugby has always been a big part of discipline in a child's life or in a young man's life, or it gives you discipline and it teaches you team ethos, a team belief of all striving for the same goal. It's what it can give children and what it can give young adults is just, you probably can't quantify it. I think I would be over the moon if my 4 or 5-year-old girl wanted to play tag. I think from introducing rugby and from a young age is absolutely fine in my book. I don't see an issue with it. As I say, there's been a lot of media and a lot of negative stories about the place now, which is probably scaring the next generation of parent, who have their youngsters and thinking, well, I'm going to put the kids in rugby because all of a sudden I've heard the word concussion and all of a sudden it's being scared. They're being scared into thinking, well, rugby is unsafe. Look, it is what it is. It's a physical, confrontational game. As I say, I think what you've got to think of with rugby is it's developing and evolving faster than most other sports.
Yeah.
You've got to compare it with, I remember, I can't remember his name now, the English player who died, must be about 15 years ago now through, I think it was CTE from headering a ball. And they've been talking about it for years in football, done nothing about it. You think about how many times a footballer comes up for a header and gets elbowed in the head, and you see, them strapping their heads and what have you. Have they got concussion protocol? Have they got concussion substitute? Have they got, people clash heads while headering the ball? Rugby is evolving to make it safer. They're gone are the times when I played probably the start of my career where we would have Monday to Thursday would be absolutely beating lumps out of each other. And all of a sudden Saturday we'd be beating lumps out of different people. And then all of a sudden it's sort of, changed from that. Coaches are more aware of it. They manage players better and they manage the safety sort of aspects of it. Proper tackle technique is being coached now and being scrutinized. As I say, I personally, I've got kids, I'd be over the moon if my kids wanted to play, rugby and what the game can give them. I think it's important to see the work that's going on to make the game safer and respect it, because as I say, I suppose NFL and American football went through, very similar sort of journey, and obviously they made films about it, and obviously that concussion protocol with the helmets and what have you. Obviously, it's a bit different there because of the pad weights and all the padding that they have and the helmets, and it becomes a little bit more unsafe for them. Yeah. But it's a better thing that it's in the public eye and it's a better thing that it's being scrutinised, because in the long run, it will make us safer.
Yeah. Who can play rugby, Nick? If I were, not me, obviously, but if someone is thinking about playing rugby and they want to join the rugby club, is that possible? Do we just walk in and ask?
Yeah, look, and that's the great thing about having a community club like Bury. There's a couple of options you could do. You could head down to the club. You'll probably be faced with someone like me saying, yeah, 100% get involved. Here's the number of a coach. I'll contact him and say, expecting your call, and crack on, and I'll put you in the right direction. You can get on our website at Bury St Edmunds, rufc.co.uk. There's all the contact details from, managers or coaches like myself in there in terms of email. If you wanted to email and find out what age group your child would be in, or whether it's for yourself, or, whether you're a 45-year-old bloke who just wants to get out of the house, or a 40-year-old woman who wants to get out of the house, I think that I can point you in the right
direction. The club will point you
Yeah.
in the right direction, and you can get involved.
Great. And if I wanted to volunteer or even use the GoFund mechanism?
Yeah, all that information is on our website. We're also on the differing social media outlets, Instagram or BSE RUFC, and the same on Twitter.
Yep.
BSE Rugby on Twitter. So as I say, you type in Bury St Edmunds into those social medias, you'll link to our site. We can always point you in the right direction there, and obviously the support element, and obviously volunteering for the club is massive because of the current climate that we're in, and we're all looking to try and pull in that same direction. And as I say, the help will be greatly received.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, it's time to go back to the Six Nations. I want your predictions. We've talked about the England-Scotland match. Let's talk about the Wales-Ireland match, and let's talk about your final prediction of the winner.
Yeah. Well, I actually predicted 2 out of 3 games on Saturday, so not too shabby there. Look, I thought Wales would win. I think that when Wales become underdogs, there's something that clicks there that really sort of pushes the boys forward. Look, we can talk about the fact that it was 14 players against, but you've got to credit those Irish lads and the squad there. They put a hell of a shift in, and defensively were rock solid for 60, 70 minutes. And as I say, I think that Wales needed a win. They needed a win by hook or by crook, and they did. And there were some huge performances. Alan Wynne-Jones, that's one of the best performances I've seen from a captain in a long time. He was a machine, and led the boys fantastically well. And it was great to see. I think that from that game, and obviously the Scotland-England game was, we spoke about it earlier, and the collisions that were won by Scotland, and their calmness in the face of chaos was excellent, and their kicking in territory game really just left England without a plan B. And obviously they completely earned. Actually, I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd have put another 20 points on them, but on another day they might have. But it's France are looking ominous. It pains me as a Welshman to obviously see Sean Edwards over in France, but fair play to him. He's gone for a different challenge, and what a name he's making for himself. I think everyone knew he was one of the best defensive coaches in the world, and fair play to Galtier for getting him involved. And as I say, they look like a very, very strong unit. But I think what you'll see from this Six Nations is the discipline is going to be huge. It is going to be absolutely massive. One mistake, one bad clear out, one high shot, one red card, it can completely change the outcome of a game. Do I think the French have got one or two of those players that could sneak a red card? Of course they can, and it could change any game they play against. So I've got a feeling that it is going to be a very, very close affair. I always sort of go for head and heart sort of situation with the Six Nations. I didn't think England were going to win a Grand Slam this year, but as I say, my head is firmly saying France. But I've got a little sneaky outside feeling that the Welsh boys might come close. A nice win. Put it this way, I remember Warren Gatland saying and hearing an interview that he said when they get a result, I think it was the second game in the Six Nations a couple of years back, and he said if they get an away game in France and they win that on the second game, then they're going for the title. They're going for the championship, and it's almost a very similar affair here with how Scotland are played. If Wales go to Scotland and win, I'm going to be wishing I put a tenner on Wales to win the championship. But as I say, it's there's a lot of twists and turns in the road. But my head is saying France. I can't see unless there's a few brain farts there and a few players do some crazy things. I would see that French team having enough to win the title, I think.
When do Wales play France?
Good question. I think it's the 4th The fourth game, I think, because we've got all the Blues. We've got all the Blues away this year, so we're Scotland, Italy, and France away.
Right.
So that's it is a tougher ask than normal to have those 3 away games. But as I say, it's something that everyone wrote off Wales. Everyone wrote off Wales at the start. Pretty much everyone wrote off Scotland at the start. And what a great advert for Six Nations to see a bit of resurgence in Scotland and hopefully look, Wales went from 3 wins out of 10. So, and that came from a championship winning changeover of coaching. So, there's going to be time for the boys to adapt to what Pivac wants. And as I say, I should imagine there'll be an English backlash as well this week, which will put them back in the hunt.
I do hope so.
Yeah, well, for your household.
Yeah, my household with a Welsh mother, an Irish father, and anyway, let's not say it was very quiet on Sunday evening. Right. Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. It's been really, really interesting.
No problem. Anytime.
And we will come down and see you at the club one day when we can all open up again.
Oh, please do. Yeah, as I say, get down there and, I'll show everything that Bury has to offer in terms of hospitality. And it'd be great to have you and Mark down there, not a problem.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nick. Take care and see you soon.
All the best. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Suffolk Pod Show. Find us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, or you can visit our website, podtalk.co.uk. And here's our disclaimer.
The Suffolk Pod Show will not be held responsible for any omissions or errors in its podcast.
The Suffolk Pod Show is produced purely for entertainment purposes. Views and opinions are that of our own or that of our guests.